In this video, we're going to go over how to fog the engine, plug the intake and exhaust, close the valves, remove the battery, and check and remove your fire system. Hey, we're out in the trailer today, and I'm going to show you guys how I winterize my Formula Vee. First thing we're going to do is fog the engine, and by fogging the engine I mean we're just going to simply spray some WD-40 down the carburetor as we crank the engine over. That will make sure that we lubricate the cylinder walls so nothing rusts. It's also going to lubricate your intake manifold because these typically do get some rust in them in the off season. So we're just going to pop our air filter off. If you have an air filter, if you have a velocity stack, you can just leave that on. Remove your coil wire, which I've already done, so the coil wire is off. The engine won't actually start, it's just going to crank over. I'm going to crank the engine over, and while I'm spraying a bunch of WD-40 down the carburetor, for at least, I don't know, 10 seconds or so, maybe 15, make sure everything is lubricated. Spray a little bit more in there, just all over the carburetor. And now we know we have plenty of WD-40 in there, and that'll keep the water out and keep everything from rusting. So now that we've done that, what I do is I take this velocity stack, pop it on the carburetor, and then I'll just take one of these, this is from a motocross plug, to plug an exhaust on a motocross bike. I have a couple bikes, but these fit perfectly in these velocity stacks, so just pop that puppy right in there and that'll keep moisture out, keep the little critters out. Hopefully everything will be perfect in the spring when we open it back up. And I have another one of these plugs that I'm going to stick in the exhaust pipe. So the next thing we're going to do is close all the valves in the engine. And we're going to do that by loosening up the valve train and taking the pressure off of the springs. Alright, so we're on the 3/4 side right now. Let's stick my drip pan underneath that head, open up the bail, take the valve cover off, and I'm going to take my 13mm socket and I'm going to loosen up the rockers. And I'm going to do it evenly, just a little bit on both sides, all the way out. And what that is doing is taking the pressure off of the valves and letting them fully close. And that's not only good because we're going to close the valve so no air or moisture can go in the cylinders, but it also takes all the pressure off, this tension off of the springs, so the springs can fully open. And so all we do is just loosen these right to the edge so there's no pressure on them, and you can spin them freely by hand. There we go. And we can also see that there's plenty of play on these valves, and all the valves are fully open, or fully closed rather, so we know that the cylinders are closed. We'll pop that back on. Put the bail back on, and that side's done. Let's go to the other side. On the other side of the engine now, throw my drip pan under there, open up the bail, take the valve cover off, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to loosen up this valve train, just taking a little bit off at a time on each side so we can do it nice and even until we start to feel them loose. That one's nice and loose. Okay, now these are just finger tight. I can easily spin them with my hands. That means there's no tension left on these springs. So all these valves are moved out, which closes the cylinder off completely from any air getting in there. So hopefully that WD-40 will stay in there and prevent any rusting that may occur. Now we're going to pop the valve cover back on, pull up the bail, click, and we're done. Alright, the next thing you guys need to look out for is your fire system. Your fire system could be a water-based system, and that means it will freeze in the winter if you leave it outside here in New England. So my system is actually a halon system, and you can see right there where it's marked, it says halon. So this fire bottle can stay out here all winter. It will not affect it. It will not freeze. So that's okay. But if you have a water-based system, be sure you bring it inside. Otherwise, you're going to be a very unhappy camper when you come out here in the spring and you see that it's exploded and your whole car is a mess. It's just like the fire system. You're going to have the same warning for your battery. Some batteries, lead acid batteries, most common battery used in Formula Vee, doesn't like to be frozen. It will not be good in the spring. I don't care if it cranks your car over in the spring. It will let you down during the year if you let it stay out in the trailer and freeze over the winter. So take your battery out. This battery is one of the lithium polymer batteries. So it is actually okay to stay out here, but I'm going to remove it anyway. I'm going to bring it inside and I'm going to charge it a couple times over the winter to make sure that it stays good so it doesn't let me down next year. So let's take that out. You always take the negative side off first of a battery. That way if your screwdriver accidentally hits the frame or something, it's not going to spark. Alright, now that the negative is off, we don't have to worry about the positive accidentally touching the frame. Unscrew that puppy. And my battery will just lift out of here. Replace your screws so you can find them again in the spring. The next thing you guys want to do is take your tires off. If you have good tires on the car that you've been using and you want to use them again next year, take them off your car and store them someplace in the house that's dry and out of the light. They're going to be noticeably worse next year if you leave them on your car and let them freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw all winter long. So these tires are going to come off, go in my basement in garbage bags, and I'll still use these again next year. Okay, that's it. We've fogged the engine with WD-40. We've closed off the valves to make sure that air and moisture don't get into the cylinders. We've closed the carburetor with, well, in my case I used a plug, but you can just use a rag if you don't have a plug like the one I have. And we've closed the exhaust in the same way. And again, you should use a rag if you don't have a plug. And we've taken our battery out. We've also checked our fire suppression system to know if we have to take that out or not. If you have a water-based system, make sure you take it out of the car. And we've changed our good tires. We've taken our good tires off the car and we put some old tires on the car so it can sit like that over the winter. If you guys don't have any other projects, then the car can sit in the trailer like this until the spring when we're ready to race again. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps somebody out there who's new to Formula Vee.